Yeah, obviously. Oh, is it time? It doesn't look like 7 o'clock there. Oh, it's 7:01. I'm sorry. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Hello. Welcome to another Monday night workshop. Mark's right, I just got warm. Not really. I've been cold all morning, all week actually. I want to just quickly mention that we are doing an Omega-1. We're doing a Monday night workshop right now. Then we're doing an Omega-1 March 17th, 18th, and 19th, which is a week and a half from today, I think. And then the Omega-2 will be March 30th, 31st, March 30th, April 1st, and April 2nd. That's our Omega-2.
30th, 31st, 1st, and 2nd.
1st and 2nd, thank you. Omega-2 is a 4-day program. Thank you for reminding me of that. I've actually been contemplating making an Omega-1 go back to a 4-day program just because I feel so much stress doing the program. I know you guys don't because you're in the classroom, but behind the scenes I don't know how many times thank you for sending this schedule to me, but yeah, we keep changing and moving activities. I don't have time for this, do it now, and it hasn't quite settled yet for me, so it's been a couple of years that we've done it as a 3-day program, but I'm leaning to go back to a 4-day program. It's just hard to get people to commit to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for.
And do you have to pay more for renting the room and other?
We'd end up having to pay more for renting the room. I'm not too concerned about that. I just want to be able to do a quality program, and I don't want to. There's a lot of stuff I've dropped out. It's dated, but then there's some stuff that I'm going faster through that I don't really have the time to give what I normally would give though. So it's just something that's been mulling around in my mind. But I am excited about doing a 1 and a 2. And when was the last time we did a 2?
A year?
Has it been a year?
No. I had flu. That was like 5 months ago.
So it's been at least almost half a year. It's been a while.
Oh, maybe longer. You're right.
Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. So 2, looking forward to doing that. 2 is my favorite program so far. And then of course I know that we announced in the newsletter the idea of an Omega-4. Mark didn't want me to say anything yet, but I'm going to say it. I'm very excited to be able to say that we're going to do a 4. I've been wanting to do one for a while now. 4 is a very different program, but I truly love the 4 as well. I'm very spiritual, grateful that unfortunately won't be until 2018 because it takes so long to book in this setting. Come on in.
I'm trying to think where to sit since I had to rinse my, I'll sit by him because he...
Enter.
The child had a little, oh, Gibbs! Sorry.
I should go get my dog. She's out.
He baptized my shoulder as
If
we
your
got
dog can sit, I'm fine.
Really?
Yeah,
Alright.
dogs are okay. Go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, as long as they'll be quiet.
Okay.
Anyway, so the idea about the Omega-4, so I'm going to wait till she comes back before I do tonight's topic. So the idea about Omega-4, it's a 10-day program. It's 2 weekends in a row. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then again another Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then of course there's activities that you have to do throughout the week as well. So as I said, it's probably my second favorite program. I love the 2s because it really pushes people, but the 4s is a lot more spiritual. And then of course we have our satsang, and I think the satsang is scheduled for May this year. I believe so. So that's a different program in an entirety. It's a, how do we call the satsang? What do we call it? What shall we call it?
Meditative.
A meditative, contemplative, silent
Retreat of sorts.
retreat. It's like a retreat. I would say that's a good idea. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people from a satsang. Wow, that's great. Alrighty then. So the next one's in May. If you guys are curious, I'm actually thinking about changing out the book and doing a different book this time, but I'm not certain which one yet. Everyone else is going, what is she talking about? All right.
Will the blood test we gave last time work for this next one?
The what?
The blood test that we had you for the last satsang work for this one?
No. You'll have to do that. I'll just start, I guess. So tonight's topic is called How Do I Find Peace peace amongst chaos. And this is actually an interesting turn of events. I wasn't going to write about this topic. I already had a topic in mind and I already had it written in my head. All I needed to do was put it down on paper. And when I sat down yesterday, my husband said, well, that's an interesting topic, but have you thought about da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, so we sat and chatted for just a little bit, and I thought, okay, I'll be up for a challenge. Let me try to do something now. And because I've been, since my last workshop, been attempting not to procrastinate. So I was all prepared to have the workshop done, not procrastinating, and then along came a new idea. So out went the other workshop, and in came this one. I ended up 5 pages, which isn't too bad, but one of the things that I wanted to do is to be able to talk about things that I can relate to. And so chaos, and one of the things I have is chaos and then peace. I definitely can relate to peace because that is something that I do look for. And then of course chaos is something that we are surrounded with.
Say hi after.
Which the 2 dogs are going to bring us chaos.
Say hi
It's okay, kids.
You can say hi afterwards.
It's funny, the one dog who knows us.
You can say hi afterwards.
That's funny.
Okay, lay down.
So, when it comes to chaos,
No, you can say hi later. I know, you can say hi afterwards.
when it comes to
Do
chaos,
you want me to?
you should be fine.
Stop. You can say hi afterwards. Remember to take a nap in the car.
Now this is perfect, because I wanted to introduce chaos. So we have a real life situation of chaos right now. When we have chaos, there's confusion.
Can I go get my dog?
And when there's confusion,
Does anybody have a cat?
it's hard to stay focused. So that's actually a very good
I don't know, Gibbs is real focused.
but that's actually a very good experience or explanation of chaos. So I'm glad that actually happened. So when I was looking for my quotes, one of the quotes I found across was Buddha. And Buddha said that everything is in the mind, what we think we become. Now that's not new. We've talked about that in the training a great deal. One of the things we say is we're a product of our thinking. Our life is based upon the product of our thoughts, and our thoughts is based upon what we see and what we hear. So I create my own reality. According to Buddha, we create our own reality. So what I believe or what I think, I actually manifest. Again, not an unusual topic because most of us understand that as well. Anybody who's read Aristotle or Plato, Torquil, Ceridarium, and of course George, has talked about the thought process of our mind. So when I can control my thinking, then I can control my living or being. That's the idea. Controlling my thinking, controlling my being, and then I can control my life. And what happens when I'm out of control? Well, that would be chaotic. That's chaos, is being out of control. So what really got me thinking about this is, and I don't want to discuss politics, but I want to use it as a catalyst. With all of the political ramping and backstabbing and blah, 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 and the amount of hatred and stress and anger and anxiety that has increased in our society, it's infiltrating in social media, it's on the TV and the radio, families and friends, topics, co-workers, what do we say, what do we not say? It's enough of a point to talk about without actually talking about the actual topic of politics. And that's just one thing. That doesn't even include the wars that are still going on, the Syrian people that are still in refugee, the other wars that are happening on the planet too, North Korea releasing ballistic missiles today. So there's so much more happening on the planet. And I think because we are socially connected and aware, we see it faster and uncovers much faster than when I was growing up. I was just telling Linda earlier that Mark and I are watching, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Dave, thank you. I was telling Linda and Dave earlier that Mark and I started watching this series on Netflix about natural disasters or man-made disasters, and it's actually kind of depressing because they're showing the dead bodies and the chaos and the war-torn, or the hurricanes that rip through, or floods. And as I was watching it, I thought, I remember growing up hearing about it, but we didn't really see much of it. So that's kind of what's been my intrigue, is I've known about these events, but I didn't really see what actually happened. Of course, now today we can, because everyone's got a camera. So every disaster is available, YouTube. I'm sure you can just type in disaster and it will show up. So it's so much more prevalent. There's so much more chaos, so much more anger, so much more stress. It affects us more than it did when I was growing up. And I'm assuming probably when you were growing up as well. It wasn't in our face all the time. We weren't confronted with it all the time. Back when I was growing up, all you do is turn off the TV. You're done. But today, you've got to hit the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram and the Snapchat and the TV and the radio, and then not even answer your phone sometimes, or not looking at your text. There's so much more that comes at us. That in itself, to me, is chaotic. The amount of information that's coming towards me. Which is why I probably gravitate more towards meditation and the spiritual side, where I'm not so inundated with the amount of energy coming at us, of all the upset and so on and so forth. So, question I had was, when I'm surrounded by an absorbent amount of ugliness, I'll call it, how do I find the beauty? When I'm surrounded by ugliness, how can I find beauty? Now we know it's there. It has to be. We know it's there. I did a workshop many years ago talking about decay and destruction, how it's necessary. If we look at a flower, you see that beautiful flower and the smell and the aroma, but if we travel 6 inches down beneath the surface and the soil, there's decay happening. Something's dying in order for that flower to be beautiful. So when I look at this and I think of the ugliness, well, okay, something must be dying. Maybe we're headed towards the famed 1,000 years of peace that was supposed to happen 12 years ago, and it hasn't happened yet. But maybe, or 17 years ago, maybe that's what we're heading towards the 1,000 years of peace. In the 27 years that I've been at Omega, which is amazing to me that I've been here for 27 years volunteering, I've learned some things about peace. I've seen personality clashes, I've seen cliques, I've seen stress, I've seen rivalry come and go. And that's not really what showed me the peace. The peace was watching George. So George Adair, of course, the founder of Omega, was a very gentle man. He never got upset. Even if somebody was coming after him and attacking him, never got upset. He simply accepted. That's what it is? Okay, I'll just accept it. There was a time in the history of Omega where some people decided they knew how to run Omega better than George, so they kind of ousted him like a coup. He didn't argue. He's like, okay, if you guys know what you're doing better, go ahead. And he stepped aside, handed them his office and the keys, and stepped aside. Didn't even make it 4 months before they came back to him and said, we need you back. But he didn't have any judgment, and even when he came back, he wasn't upset. He didn't condemn them. He didn't speak ill of them at all, because he figured it was all just an experience. Watching him do that, and of course some experiences in my life, I've learned 5 things from George when it comes to peace. So the first thing I learned was finding value. Of course, in the classroom we say everything has value. If it exists, it's got value. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So my job is to find out what's the value. If something is present, if it's causing stress, if it's causing upset, if it's an obstacle, then I have an opportunity to rise above it. I have an opportunity to gain strength. So if it exists, then there's value. So always look for the value. That will bring me peace. Instead of being upset because something is happening, I can sit and think, okay, what's the value about this? How do I find value in whatever is unfolding? That takes me out of the stress and puts me back into my thinking. And remember, as Buddha said, our thought process is what we manifest is going to make our lives. So that's finding the value. The second thing is to not take things personal. This was a big one. Not particularly for me, but I see this a lot in individuals, especially people who come in staff or facilitators and they were really invested that people like them. They'd have a really hard time being honest because they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Oh, I want everyone to like me. And so their trainings weren't as effective as George's because, those of you who had George in front of you, the man was, boom, frank, to the point with love. He never was vicious or angry. It was just like, hey, matter of factly, here you go. This is the way it is. So not taking things personal. The thing that I remember most is, I'm going to try to quote him. Everyone has a right to their opinion. However, those opinions should not be the weight in my mind or something like that. The only voice that I should adhere to is my own. That's what he used to say. So everyone has a right to their own opinion. And you don't have to take it on. Let it be their weight, not yours. Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to hate you. You're going to have people in between. Some people are going to go out of their way to destroy you, and some people are going to go out of their way to lift you up. To remain neutral is what he would say often, remaining neutral. So that's not take things personal. And of course, again, the only voice I should heed to is my own. So how do I find my own voice? Well, if I focus on my voice, then I'm not really focusing on the stress then. It's more about me and my voice. The third one was not to provoke. Do not provoke. So he would say, when there's an angry bear, you don't poke it with a stick. That's common sense. If you have an angry bear, you don't walk up and poke it with a stick. It's an angry bear. You leave the angry bear alone. Now, I know when I would do a lot of hiking, they would talk about if you encountered a bear, many things that you're supposed to do. Some people would say make yourself larger and be intimidating. Other people play dead. And, you know, the most famous one is turn around and run. Because if you stay, the bear will attack you. So you don't poke the bear. So the idea is you don't provoke people. Become aware of your surroundings and act accordingly. If there's somebody upset, there's no need to say, well, you're wrong, and throw more fire into or fuel onto the fire, which ends up happening. Oh, I wrote something funny in here. Unless you're Winnie the Pooh, you don't put your hand in a beehive. Winnie the Pooh does, and he doesn't care, and he doesn't get stung. But a normal person would not put your hand in the beehive just to get the honey, so you've got to find a different way, creative way to find your solutions. The fourth one, stay centered. This is probably my favorite, staying centered. Now, I learned to do this early on as a child. I just didn't know that's what it was called, staying centered. But the techniques of meditation, of going within, find your happy place, all of those are staying centered. So whatever's happening around you should not affect you. It's a sense of stability. So no matter what was happening around me. Now, as I said, I learned this very early on. I think I was about 6 or 7 years old. I remember thinking, no matter how many times, bipolar mom, no matter how many times I'm being beaten or abusive, you can't hurt me inside. You could break my bones, scar me, not even knock me unconscious, but nothing happens to me inside. And I remember when I had that thought, it was so liberating. It was kind of like I just waited for the beating to end, and then I'd move on. Like, it was just an inconvenience, although I didn't call that when I was a kid. But that's, when I look back at it, that's kind of what it ended up being, because you couldn't hurt me. That no matter what you did, you couldn't get to me. There was great power there, great power, especially when an answer was required out of me and I wouldn't give it. Because no matter what you do, you can't make me speak either. So I have control. So I learned a great deal about willpower there and staying centered. And of course, meditating, which I didn't know is what was happening when I was doing it. And the last thing, number 5, was to observe. The idea of observation. When you're in a stressful situation or a chaotic situation, you observe. Most of the time, well, let me back up for a second. As a fireman, you don't just run into the fire, do you? You have to stop and observe the situation. Where's the fire coming from? Is there any other loopholes or oxygen sources that might be adding more fuel to the fire? Is there any gas on? You have to prepare before you go in. How many people are in there? What's the structure look like? The age of the building comes into play as well. So we prepare ourselves. All of that's through observation. So when you're in stress and chaos, as I've seen unfold the last few months, especially on the media networks, it's like no one's even listening to anybody. It says, let me talk louder, let me talk louder, let me talk louder. And so everyone wants their opinion to be heard, which of course, naturally, everyone's opinion. Everyone has a right to an opinion. But then it gets to be malicious and personal. People start taking things personal. They start throwing shots at each other, and then the height goes, the vibration and the noise level goes up, and then it sounds so chaotic to me when I try to listen. I call them the talking heads, but I can't listen. It's just too much coming at me. Now this is me. I'm saying it's me, my little stumbling block that I'm working on finding peace with. I will find peace when I watch the news, if I watch it again. So, with observation, I was thinking about this. I remember one time my daughter, we were out and her daughter, my granddaughter, yelled really loud, and my daughter turned around and said, "Be quiet, I'm talking." Well, she didn't realize that my granddaughter was trying to get her attention that her sister had fallen and cut herself. So when we don't observe, we react immediately. And had my daughter not looked and saw her other daughter on the ground, she would not have known. So it was a really good awareness, a good eye-opener. Wow, observe, don't just react. We have to observe before we actually take action. Now, if I can apply all of these principles to today's drama, what would it look like? And I'm using the word chaos because for me that's what it feels like, chaos. I'm a bit of an empath, so it feels energy-wise, it's very confusing to me to find the different types, and it just feels like it's all coming at me. So first let me define chaos. Webster defines chaos as complete confusion and disorder, which is what I feel, a state in which behavior and events are not controlled by anything. It seems like they're just lawlessly, just bounce, 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 like there's no rhyme or reason to anything, it just feels and seems that way. Now there's been a couple of times when I found myself in chaotic situations, not intentionally, it just happened. I decided to just pick three. One of them was a malfunction on an amusement park ride. So I can't see the clock, so I don't know where it is. A malfunction on the amusement park ride. So I was, this is years ago, it was like a toboggan or a bobsledding thing, but it was in the summertime. So it was a cement track, and we just sat on like a flexi ride thingy that didn't have any wheels. It just kind of slid down. I actually don't even know how maybe it did have wheels. Anyway, there wasn't a seatbelt or anything. You just sat on it and went down this hill. And it was a cutout cement thing that you were in, but it wasn't very deep. I mean, I think when I was sitting in it, it was like right here, so it wasn't, and I was pretty light, and they didn't really give us many instructions. So as we went down this hill and we kind of curved around, I let go, because I thought I was going to fall, and my thing flipped and threw me out of this ride. It flung me about 20 feet down the hillside. And I bounced around, and the thing was bouncing behind me. My little sled was bouncing behind me. I landed on my elbow. A rock hit my elbow, and I still have an injury from it where it just, you know when you hit your funny bone and you say it's not funny? I think I broke my funny bone because that was very intensely painful. So what happened with that, I was confused because that's not supposed to happen. And so here I am flying through the air, being confused and not knowing what's going on. Well, my older brother was behind me and he saw it. So he tried to slow down. So he put his feet out to slow down because he was going to get out and come get me. My sister was behind him and didn't see, and she crashed right into my brother, and the two of them went flying off of it. So not a very safe ride. As a matter of fact, I think it's closed shortly after that. And when we got back down to the mountain, the attendant down there's like, "Why are you guys walking? You were supposed to be in there." Well, like, nobody told us what to do, and I was actually quite terrified to get back in it because I knew that there was a lot more curves and sweeping movements like that. So that was one experience of being chaotic as a child. You don't know what's happening. It just was very scary. I had a lot of fear. The second one, I was in a canoe that capsized. So I had a bunch of teenagers. Were you with me on this one? Horseshoe Lake, I think it was. We had a bunch of teenagers, and there was no rapids. It was just regular water. We were out on the river, and there must have been an undertow or a current or something that hit us just in the right way, and the kids got scared, and they stood up, and that was it. The whole thing flipped over. So when it flipped over, my first thought is safety. Is everyone okay? But I went under, and the boat hit me. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did it hit anybody else? And now I'm in charge of these children. I make sure they're okay. So I pop up, and I see the two kids that were in my canoe with me. I'm like, okay, they're okay. But then there was like two other canoes that flipped over too because they saw us, and they didn't want to hit us, and they flipped. So we have like all these canoes upside down. So then we're like trying to flip the canoe. Have you ever tried to flip a canoe back over when you can't touch the ground? You're floating and you're trying, that was us. And I'm like, get it over. So we kind of just walked it over to the bank and then flipped it back. We lost everything. in there. But that was, again, very chaotic. Just those few moments that I'm underwater and I know the canoe tipped and it hit me on the shoulder and I thought, oh my God, did it hit one of the kids? So it was panicked. So safety was one of my concerns there. But the absolute worst chaotic event that I was ever at was Thanksgiving Macy Day Parade in New York City. I was there. I've been to them a couple of times, but this one I was actually in the crowd. Normally I'm off to the side and I'm watching it, but somehow we ended up being in the center right in front of Macy's. So right as everybody's coming, we're right there, and it kind of was like at an angle. And the people I was with, my younger brother and my best friend and a couple other people here, they had never been there before, so they wanted to get to the front. So they're squishing and trying to get to the front. I'm not liking crowds. I'm backing up because I'm thinking there's too many people here. And if you've ever been in a crowd or a mob mentality, you can feel the panic start. So I felt the panic starting. And people were starting to push. And people were starting, back up, you're pushing me, stop pushing me. And people started yelling. And then it started stretching across to where we were. And then it felt very chaotic. And then I felt a bunch of people behind me just push me forward. And there was nowhere to go. So I'm being pushed against the people in front of us. And they're in the front backing up because they're against the barricade. And they're getting pushed. And I just looked at my friend and said, we need to go now. And I just grabbed her hand and turned and started cutting through as fast as I could to try to get out the other way. Now people were happy that I was leaving, so they were going behind me, so it was almost like it made a little wake for us to get out of there. But the scariest thing is when I grabbed my friend's hand and said, we have to go, I looked, and I'm not kidding, a mother had picked up her daughter out of a stroller seconds before the stroller crumpled, and people trampled on top of it. Seconds! And I'm thinking, that's a child right there. People, you're not even looking. But I knew I was saying something. Nobody was going to say anything. I just grabbed her and we just ran. And she grabbed her son, who grabbed, like we made this little chain of people, and we made our way out. I was so nervous and so much, I had to get out of the city. I mean, just getting out of there wasn't enough. I needed out of the city. Get on the train, let's go now. It just was, that was panic. That was really chaotic and panic. And being a short person, when you're with all these people and you can't quite see what's happening, that's worse. So I'm in this panicky place, strollers collapsing, children may be hurt, people are screaming and yelling at each other, and I can't see my way out. I think that's the best way to explain chaos. There's no clear vision. Just move, do something, because you're surrounded, overwhelmed. So I think that when I think about chaos, that's the thought that goes back to me, is that Thanksgiving Day parade that we almost got trampled on. Trampled, that's the word, trampled. So I think sometimes that's the reason why when I go to chaos, that's where I go to, is those experiences I've had. Now I've had other experiences, but those are the most ones that really capture my attention. So just like last week I did last month I did an acronym for procrastination. I did, God bless you, I did a procrastination, God bless you. I did an acronym for chaos. And I didn't have a chance to do a slide presentation this time because my topic got changed on me. So the first one, C for chaos, the first one I came up with, what I decided to do was talk about the effects of chaos. So I'm going to talk about chaos first. What are the effects of chaos? So the first one I wrote was combative. If we get into chaos, it can lead to combativeness. People can get very combative. Typically when there's a chaotic situation, most individuals get defensive. They get put on guard, and naturally when we get defensive, then our protective instincts come into play, and we want to defend, attack, protect, but then we get combative on top of that. So it's natural because there's no anchor. There's nothing for us to anchor to. So for example, those Omega graduates, if you've ever played a game that has minimal instructions, and you're left alone with a group of people to try to figure it out, chaos happens, doesn't it? We watch the chaos unfold. So we're in the background laughing because we know what's happening, but while you're in it, it's very chaotic. You don't know what's going on. So that would be a good example of chaos for the Omega people. You know what I'm talking about. It's really and even I've had this experience of being on a jury duty. When nobody takes charge, it's very chaotic. Everyone's like, whoa, 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 what do we do here, what do we do there? So it can try to get 12 people on a single point near impossible. It's almost near impossible. It only works when you have somebody who takes the lead and becomes the jury foreman. So that's chaos, but combative, the first one. The second one is harm, for chaos, C-H, harm. We can be harmful or harmed when we are in a chaotic situation. Naturally, the mob in New York is a great example of when you can be harmed. We can be harmed physically. We can be harmed emotionally as well. If you've ever been in a combative or a chaotic situation like a relationship and they start screaming and yelling and saying things that they don't really mean, but in that moment, fueled with emotion, boom, you end up striking out and harming each other. And if someone harms you, we lash back and harm back at them. So harmful is another thing that can happen, especially when we add emotions. I guess I should just say that now. Chaos is worse when there's emotions. Some chaos, okay, I get it. It'll settle down. But when you add emotions, somehow it's like adding the fuel to the fire and it just kicks up and it's like, boom, a huge explosion instead of just a little flicker. So some chaos is necessary to find our way, totally get it, but when you have humongous chaos, it's very, very difficult. And so again, that's with emotions. When we add emotions into chaos, that's when we end up harming people. So we harm people and we're combative. The next one I have is attitude. Now attitude, C-H-A, is attitude. Attitude, it can be positive or negative, but with chaos, it's negative because you don't know what you're doing. So again, jury duty, if there's a bunch of people and there's no foreman, everyone gets an attitude. Well, I don't know what you do. Well, I don't care you do that. And before you know it, people are just snappy and withdrawn, and an attitude just takes off. The dangerous thing about a negative attitude is it spreads like wildfire, unfortunately. You got one person complaining, and then another person's going to complain, and then another person, well, then it's okay to complain, so let's all start complaining. And before you know it, everyone's complaining. And then, I don't want to be here. This is too hot. This is too cold. And then chaos. So then you have more complaining, more negative attitude, and you start finding things that you don't feel good about. Negative attitudes could lead us towards depression, anger, irritability, disassociation, withdrawal. All of those happen when we have a negative attitude. And like I said, it can spark like wildfire. The next one I have, so it's O, C-H-A-O, is offensive. So when we are in a chaotic situation, we can be offensive at times. Now, offense is I actually had a paper I was writing about the difference between offense and offense. Because offense is like the offense on a football team. That's to protect the quarterback. So the offensive lineman, his job is to protect the quarterback. That's pretty powerful to be a protecting agent. But offensive, when I'm on the offense, I'm attacking. So a position of offense on the lineman, he's protection. But if I'm offensive, which is emotionally fueled, I'm attacking. So when I get offensive, I attack people. This is when we have, unfortunately, racial slurs that come into play, or judgments, and I won't talk about that. But I've had experiences where I sit there and scratch my head and think, did they just say that? Like, what? It's amazing, but there are some people that do say things out of order. So again, out of order meaning morality. Back to the talking heads. I find sometimes they're offensive. Mostly because they're not listening to each other. I find that offensive. You should be respectful and listen to everyone's opinion and not try to put somebody else's opinion down. Well, here you're wrong and here's why you're wrong. With just an opinion, not factual. If you had a fact, that would be okay, but to say you're wrong because my opinion is stronger than your opinion, and then no, you're wrong because my opinion, and then it's back and forth, it's pretty amazing to me about the amount of offense. What I think about this is, the reason why I call them talking heads is because they're not coming from their heart. But if the newscasters actually did speak from their heart, it probably wouldn't be entertaining and nobody would want to watch. So it's unfortunate. That seems to be the way it manifests. I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys yet or not, but I have a broadcasting degree and I spent several years in the industry. And I finally left because I got quite disillusioned. I'd watch producers and writers and directors change stories to get the wow factor. And I remember seeing this one story that they edited. This sweet little woman who did nothing but to assist this individual. They spun this story around to make her look like she was this evil villain and she caused great harm, and that was it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So to watch people try to manipulate the news really was very disheartening to me, and that's probably why I have a hard time with the talking heads now, because I feel offended. That's my profession, and look what you're doing to it. Although I don't even think it's a profession anymore, it's just whoever's on the air. So anyway, that's the offense. And then the last one for chaos, I came up with the word scathing. Scathe, like to scathe when you're scathing results or scathing retaliation. So scathing is to intentionally harm and cause harm or injury to another individual. Intentionally, going out of your way to harm somebody. And the way I describe this is, if you've ever been verbally attacked, has anybody ever here been verbally attacked? I've been verbally attacked. So when somebody verbally attacks you, if you turn around and verbally attack them back, what's going to happen? They're going to escalate, and they're going to verbally attack you. So typically, I've had the experience when I've given perhaps maybe advice or some feedback, some constructive feedback, and they don't appreciate it, I get back a scathing remark. Well, let me tell you. And they start telling me what's wrong with me and completely ignore the comment I just made. And I'd say, well, that is true, yes, but I wasn't talking about me. I was mentioning X, Y, and Z that you just did. Well, let me tell you. And then they come back again. And then if you keep trying to feed it, you can't. Once they have a scathing comment, they're not listening anymore. So anything you say falls on deaf ears. So that's the biggest number one thing. As soon as you have somebody who comes back at you, okay, thank you, and stop it right then and there. This will frustrate them because some people really like to argue. And then, what do you mean? What's the matter? Why don't you want to talk? And, oh, I'm good, thank you. And they'll have to find somebody else to attack on that side. But most of the time, I think they don't find value in you and what you said. So why are you speaking to someone who's not even interested in what you have to say to them? So when you have somebody who's doing a scathing remark, you stay away. It's like you don't poke the bear. Stay away. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your opinion. Okay. And then move away. That's the best way to handle it. I struggle sometimes when I'm doing the team trainings. I'd have the kids say, well, my father says you just got to stand your right and fight and take the first punch to let them know how strong you are. You know, you don't want to combat the parents. That's what they're trying to teach their children. But as a self-proclaimed Buddhist, that's not what I would do. I would not take the first punch. I would offer and let somebody else the right to be right. You don't need to be right all the time. So when you have somebody who does scathing remarks, those are the ones who have to fight to be right. If you fight to be right, you never will find peace. But those people that keep the chaos going, they keep fighting. And then if they finally get the agreement, well, you're just saying that just to shut me up. Well, yes, that's true. But they're not happy because now that you're agreeing, you're not agreeing the right reason. You have to agree because of what I did. It's just insane. So yeah, there are some people in my life that I do everything I can to avoid a conversation with. I smile and say thank you and continue on. Now, that takes care of chaos. So it's combative, harmful. We have a negative attitude, it can be very offensive, and scathing remarks. So those are things that happen when people are chaotic, when you are in chaos. Now remember, as I mentioned, being a short person in the mob, I can't see clearly. How long do you think I would survive in a chaotic situation if I didn't try to get out? How long would I be able to stay nonviolent? How long? Not long. Eventually it's going to come up, you've probably had this, eventually somebody can just wear you down and you finally break. Eventually it's like enough already, I got it already. So if we have nothing we can ground to, if we have nothing that we're striving for, we will be absorbed into like a black hole. We'll be absorbed into it. So we have to have something to focus on. And that's back to what Buddha said, where the mind is everything, what we think we become. Now if I'm in a chaotic situation and I am striving for peace, I am looking for evolving out of the chaos, would it be an easy task or a difficult task?
Say that one again?
If I do know I'm in chaos and I want to get out, I'm striving for it, will it be an easy task to get out of the chaos or difficult to get out of the chaos?
Very difficult.
It varies. Why?
Well, it depends
Some
on,
days where I did it pretty well, and then I have some months where I haven't.
Okay, so experiences may have done it. What were you gonna say?
well, it depends on your level of self-control.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it depends on the people. Because it does depend on the people too. If I'm attached to the people, if they're my family members, I'm gonna wanna kind of stay. But if it's people I'm really not attached to, it might be a little bit easier for me to have self-control. But if I don't wanna hurt somebody's feelings, my mom or my dad or my brother or my daughter or my son, I might stay in the chaos a little bit longer.
Right over the husband on that one.
It's not chaotic. We are in flow.
I have a saying, I say to myself, politeness doesn't cost me a penny.
That's true. That's a nice one. I like that. Politeness does not cost me a penny. I'm gonna
Doesn't
remember that.
cost me any money to be polite. I realized this after I had a fist fight with an old cop, a retired cop.
You attacked a retired cop?
He was on my step,
Oh.
pushing me up against my bed. We had to go, and it was all over stupid words. So I learned my lesson.
Uh-huh.
Politeness doesn't cost me a penny.
That's excellent. I appreciate that, which is gonna go right into the story I'm gonna tell, so thank you. Let me first define peace, since at the opposite side, I presented chaos now. Now, peace. What are we striving for? Peace. In the classroom, sometimes we talk about the idea that ultimately we're looking for peace. In the ultimate goal in life, we're looking for peace. Even on the gravestones, it says RIP, rest in peace. That would be the ultimate goal, to find peace. When I find peace, I'm content, I'm complete, there's no need for me to have upset, anger, it's just everything is. We find acceptance when there's peaceful. So again, back to George, a very peaceful man. Very, very peaceful man. I truly felt honored that I knew him for as long as I did and worked side by side with him as long as I did. And then sometimes I get so embarrassed, it's like, my God, I worked with him for 20 years, you'd think I'd get it by now. He's probably on the other side going, come on. He wouldn't be doing that. Okay, so the definition of peace. Now this is not as simple as the definition of chaos. This was very intriguing. So number one, a state of tranquility or quiet, such as freedom from civil disturbance, or a state of security or order within a community. Now I find it intriguing that the first definition of peace has to do with community. So it's the state of freedom from civil disturbances or community. So we look for tranquility and quiet. Number two, freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts or emotions. So peace is not being oppressed is what that would come out to. Number three, harmony in personal relationships. That's easy, to have a peaceful relationship. We have harmony. So that would bring peace. Number four, there's two definitions for number four. A state or period of mutual concord between governments. So we have a peaceful relationship with Canada. We have a peaceful relationship with England. I think that's it. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. And B, a pact or agreement to end hostilities. We sign a peace treaty is what it's called. There's a peace treaty that we sign. And number five, used interjectively to ask for silence or calm or as a greeting or farewell. I thought about in church, peace be with you. That's what you would say to each other, peace be with you. Or peace, or peace man, what's up, peace? Or I am not a crook. So, just as I found myself in chaotic situations, I thought I would describe some experiences that were tremendously peaceful in my life. And much to my happiness, I have far more peaceful experiences than I do chaotic experiences. So what I went through is I tried to find a couple of them that I can relate to. The first one I thought of was sitting in the mountains in Sedona with the sun on my face on a nice warm afternoon, not 110 degrees, 80, let's say. Just a nice gentle breeze. If you've ever been to Sedona with the red rocks and just the sun on your face, and the energy of Sedona anyway is quite peaceful. But being up there, nobody's talking. Occasionally you'll hear a guy playing his flute. He has an Indian flute. He plays it beautifully. He'll sit up on one of the rocks. It's just so quiet and peaceful. And what it does is the weight of the world is gone. And what I feel is just being. It's not like I'm sitting there trying to think about what my next workshops are going to be or all the lists that I have to do. And no, it's just gone. And you feel the trees. You can feel the wind. It's almost rejuvenating, and yet I'm not really doing anything. I'm just being. So I'm sitting there being. So I've had this happen a number of times. It's hard to describe it. Like I said, it's more just being. Like the mind is disengaged, I am engaged in what's around. So most of my experiences in peace actually have to do with nature. The second one I picked was a 10-day Vipassana meditation. So a 10-day Vipassana, this is a meditation that you go, it's a silent retreat. For 10 days you're not speaking, and for 14 hours a day you are meditating. 10 straight days, 14 hours a day meditating. I'm going to say that again, I did it. For 10 days, not speaking to a single person, and you meditate for 14 hours a day. Now, I didn't expect this. I went with a friend of mine. We thought we'd just go check it out, and I really didn't know what to expect. And there were about 30 people on the women's side and about 40 on the men's side, and so you couldn't interact with the opposite sex, so we had to stay separated. But we came together 3 times a day in the main hall to do the group meditations. And it was odd at first because you'd walk in and you'd hold the door, thank you. Well, not allowed to say thank you. And so we find different creative ways of greeting each other or standing and ushering somebody through. You just found ways to communicate. But then I started enjoying not having to talk to anybody. And I actually challenged myself to not acknowledge people. So if somebody held the door, I didn't do a nod, I just walked right in. It felt strange, but hey, I don't care, I don't know who these people are. I'm experimenting on you. And then I would do things where I did one day where I tried to be the first one there to open the door for everyone, to be like on the opposite side of, and not be attached on whether or not anybody recognized me. So I would look down. I held the door open and I would just look down. And I'd wait to see if everyone was in, and then I'd go and find my seat. So I played around with it a little bit. But the idea of peace. At the end of this 10 days, when I had not spoken to anyone, and the food, by the way, was incredible. It was vegetarian. They just really took care of us. So 10 days by myself, sleeping in a small little unit all by myself. There wasn't anybody in the bunk room with me. I'm by myself. I emerged feeling peace is the only thing I can think of. But I felt tranquil. I didn't have any upset. And I should have added on top of this, you are disconnected. There's no cell phone, there's no internet, there's no books, no reading or writing. All you do is meditate. So I don't know what's happening in the world. But those 10 days of not being connected to the world, I felt so much more connected to myself. Very peaceful, and very clear. Very clear-minded. As a matter of fact, when I met Mark, we both agreed we didn't want to get married. I never had wanted to get married. He never wanted to be married again. Hold that thought. When I came out of this Vipassana meditation, I clearly knew I wanted to marry him. Clearly. It was like that was it. Light on. No judgment, no upset. It was just, we have to do this. This is what we're going to do. I had not experienced clarity like that in a long time. It was just very clear, and not just about my marriage, but everything in life. I just felt very clear, pure, in tune, in touch, intuitive, any of these other things that you can mention. That's what I felt. Didn't expect any of that. I just thought I was going to a meditation, and, I actually didn't know what to expect. I just followed my friend to this meditation. So that was my second one. But then I did, just like I had the New York City one, I picked one of the ones that really was the most mind-blowing that I've experienced in my life. This is back in 2000. I was on Maui with a friend of mine and on vacation, and then she went home a day earlier. One of my risks was to stay in a place that I'd never been to before by myself for the entire day. I don't like to eat in restaurants by myself. I'm a person that it's either go through, take home, or just cook it myself. I don't like being out in public by myself, just something, I don't know, I can't. I went to a movie one time by myself, did not enjoy it. It just felt creepy. Like, who's that lady by herself? See the strange things that go on in my head. Anyway, that was my risk, was to be on the island all by myself, going out to eat by myself. I sat in the center of a restaurant, which I thoroughly did not enjoy and did not eat. But I sat there for 30 minutes, didn't read, I sat and looked at everyone. It was very funny. All these people probably have these different experiences. They might go, there was one time this woman did this thing. And be like, yeah, that was me. Anyway, I'm on Maui. I'm there by myself. And I really wanted to spend the day observing too, observing myself and the things that I was struggling with, risks and so on and so forth. And I found myself in Kihei. This is the city that we had stayed in. I was walking along the beach. And here's where it gets a little woo-woo-y. I'm walking on the beach, looking down, and I'm looking at the water with my feet walking in there, and all of a sudden I heard a whale. Now, snorkeling, when you're in the water and you have your ear in the water, you can hear them calling to each other. You can hear that, right? Sorry. Almost chaos again. But in the water, you hear it clearly. You don't hear it in the air. So I'm walking on the beach and I heard it. I heard a whale call. And this is where it gets really like misty. If I was doing a movie scene, it would be one of those foggy, misty scene kind of things where you don't have real clarity. So I remember standing there and I thought, I can't hear a whale. I'm not in the water. And I heard it again, this call. So I looked out onto the water, and it was like as if time stood still. Everything went slow motion, and I watched this humpback whale very slowly come out of the air. Again, it was very weird, and this was not a dream. This actually happened. This whale came up out of the water off in the distance. Now, if you've ever seen a humpback whale, they're huge. And they have this big, huge thing, and then their eye, and then the rest of their body. So this big, huge mouth comes up out of the water, and it turned. So it actually went like this, and then it turned. And it turned so that I could see its eye. And it stood there. I can't explain why, how, or what. I just remember that eye, and I remember looking into its eye. I saw, they're huge, and he was pretty close to the shoreline, and we just looked at each other. And I remember standing there thinking, I cannot believe I'm looking into the eye of a whale, and how is he staying above water? Is he swimming? What is he doing? And then, very slowly, he went right back down. It wasn't like a breach or anything. It was kind of like an I spy that the orcas do, but it was much bigger. So he went up in the air, turned and looked at me, and then slid back down. And when he slid back down, time kind of went back again to being real time. And I remember standing there completely being dumbfounded. Like, how did that just happen? And I'm still contemplating, how did I hear the whale? I'm standing on the shore. How did I hear the whale? And then I remembered my camera was in my hand. I missed a picture. And so once I did that, and I said, oh, I missed a picture, I looked to see if anybody else got a picture, and I was the only one on the beach. In the middle of the day in Maui, I'm the only one on the beach. How is that possible? It was like that was meant for me. Now, I have no connections to whales. It wasn't like my spiritual animal came and, but that moment of connecting with a creature that was so huge and unlike me, I don't even have any words to describe it. And just the feeling of time stopping and knowing I just witnessed something that nobody else saw. I just experienced something that was obviously just for me. What the heck? And I just remember standing there, closed my eyes, I felt the sun, and it's kind of like, I don't want to sound, but it's almost like God was there saying, you are equally valuable too, or something like that. All creatures, great and small, or something. I'm not a Bible person, so I can't really quote anything, but it was like I remember thinking great and small, equally valuable, and I felt as big as the whale. When I had my eyes closed, I felt as big as a whale, which is a very strange thing to say, but it was very, very peaceful. I can't even tell you what happened the rest of the day, and that was in the afternoon. I glided and floated pretty much the rest of the day, and I got on a plane. I don't even remember the flight back. I just remember landing, and I got back home, and it was an overnight flight, so I slept for a couple of hours, and I woke up, and I just felt transformed. I don't even know what else to say. It just felt very transforming to me. So much so that I didn't speak the rest of the day, that I was home. I didn't interact with anybody. I journaled a little bit and tried to figure out what that was about. It wasn't the first time I've experienced time slowing down for me, so that wasn't new, but what was new was the whale. And the fact that I heard it when it was in the water. I heard it and I wasn't in the water. That was just, still to this day, that just is something that catches my attention. Anyway, so that's the peace that I would strive for. I would love to be able to maintain that. To be able to maintain that feeling of essence and being and nothing bothers you and just smile. Like if you just smile because you feel like smiling. You know how many people don't smile? I've done this. I've walked in the stores. Most people when they're shopping do not smile. And when you stop and smile at them, they're very hesitant. Some of them will smile, and some of them will just get nervous and walk away. I'm amazed at how much, you know who smiles? Kids. Smile at any kid and they will always smile back at you. And they'll wave, you wave, they'll get all excited and wave. It's amazing. Where did we lose the transition of just smiling because we want to? And it's a fearful thing, we can't smile at people. So, anyway, talking about the different peaceful experiences, naturally, it's easy to experience peace when I didn't have chaos. So, in order to go back to my original question, can I find peace amongst the chaos, then I had to find a chaotic situation where I did find peace. And I did find one. Some of you may have already heard the story already, but I'll say it again. It happened when I was about 15 years old. My mother was in her bad bipolar mood, and I'm standing at the top of the stairs, and she's goading at me. Come on, what are you, chicken? And she's pushing me. And I've got my hand up, and I want to hit her. I mean, every fiber in my being is vibrating with anger, and I can feel it. And I just want to haul off and knock her down. And so she's in my face, and she's goading me and pushing me and pushing. What's the matter? What's the matter? Are you chicken? Come on. And I remembered in this moment, so this is chaotic now. I've got this confusing person screaming at me, pushing at me. I'm at the edge of the stairs, so I quite possibly am going to go down the stairs again. I've gone downstairs before, so I'm standing there thinking, what's going to happen? But I remembered, I turned away for a second. And when I looked back at my mother, I didn't see my mom. I saw this monster. It was this angry, distorted-looking face, and I remember looking in her eyes, and I couldn't find her. It was just this vacant, screaming, yelling thing. And the thought went in my head, if you hit her, that is what you're going to look like. That's what your life looks like if you go through with this. And when I had that thought, immediately I had peace. I knew that's not what I wanted. I looked at her and thought, that is not the life I want. Absolutely not. And I remember this sensation of peace just washed over me. My body relaxed because I fully prepared myself to fall back to the stairs. I figured she was going to push me down the stairs again, so I just relaxed. I put my arm down and very calmly and peacefully looked at her and said, no. And then I turned and I went down the stairs towards my bedroom, waiting for her to hit me. Nothing happened. I just calmly went, and I was fine. I went into my room. That was the very last time my mother ever laid her hands on me. It's like at that moment, in the chaos, I found the peace. And I really didn't matter what happened to me. If she was going to hit me, wasn't going to hit me, doesn't matter. I just remember thinking, I have a choice. And that goes back to what Buddha said. Thinking is what the life you create. So my thought was, that's not the life I want. And I created the life I did want. And I didn't have any upset or anger. It just washed right out of me. So I can find peace in chaos, but I have to search for it. And I think the most important thing on that one is I needed to break away. Had I stayed in that anger and had that rage running up through me and not broken away, I would have probably went through with it. But because I had a moment to break away, clear my thoughts, breathe, whatever, and reconnect back, that's when I saw what was really happening. So that's why I'm a huge advocate of when you're in stress, get up and move. Go walk somewhere. Take a break. When you take a break, you get a different perspective when you come back. So I'm a huge advocate of that. So that's a good example of what it's like to be in chaos and find the peace. Just as I said, Buddha said that. So, peace. Now, to go through the acronym of peace, P, pacifist. So when you're a peaceful person, you're a pacifist. We don't cause harm. It's not our intention to cause injury. A pacifist does everything to avoid conflict. That's what a pacifist would do. So a peaceful individual is a pacifist individual. Somebody's standing and raving at you, okay, thank you, and not provoke them. That would be a pacifist. Number two, the second letter, P-E, is enrich. As a peaceful individual, we find ways to enrich the situation. It's not about me. How can I enrich the situation? How can I enhance the situation, enhance the person? Jury duty, for example. Chaos happening, I volunteer to be the foreman. Hey, let's take care of it. So I'm enriching the situation. All right, we've got clarity. Now let's move forward. So we look for ways to make a contribution. A, back to attitude. So just as chaos had the negative attitude, peace has the positive attitude. A little bit harder, because in a positive attitude, people always want to take you down, but you got to stick with that positive attitude. Positive attitude ends up building up your own willpower. You can face criticism with gratitude. We find great gratitude in everything. So when you have a positive attitude, nothing really will get you down. We find thank you, and if someone's upset with me, okay, thank you. Someone is angry, okay, there's a reason for this. So we find the value, again, one of the things we're searching for. The C is compassion. Compassion for understanding somebody else's stress. If you think about the definition, compassion actually means that you understand someone's stress and you want to alleviate their pain. That's the first definition. So when you're a compassionate individual, we find ways, or we seek for ways, to alleviate other individuals' pain. If I'm searching for peace and I'm in a stressful situation, I search for why this person is so upset. Why are the injuries happening? Why is there chaos? So I search for a way to have compassion and alleviate the pain, even if it means I have to take something on. Again, like in jury duty, I'll be the foreman to ease the pain so that everyone can now move forward. That would be an example of passion, compassion. And the last one is embrace. So I came up with the idea of embracing. Now this is a little bit different. When it comes to embracing, to truly embrace one's values, I become unshakable. So when I embrace, so not just embracing another individual, but I can embrace my morals and my values so much so that you can't shake me, you can't buy me. This is what I stand for and it will not move. When I embrace something like that, I'm invincible. I'm invincible. The Japanese, as a matter of fact, with kamikazes, they embraced the idea that they're going to die for their cause. They were an incredible fighting machine. Can you just imagine people who are willing to die and they're bombing aircraft carriers with their planes? Because that's what they have. I mean, that's pretty strong will. So when somebody embraces their values, you can move mountains. So if I'm embracing the search for peace, then I'll find peace, because that's what I'm searching for. Now, I went through that kind of quickly because the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the idea of searching for chaos and peace in chaos, but not mine. There's a great story. We just saw a movie called Hacksaw Ridge. Has anyone seen this?
Yeah.
Hacksaw Ridge. It's a true story about a first-class private in the Army during World War II in the Battle of Okinawa. So just a little bit of backup on this gentleman. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. So a seven-day Adventist. Yeah, a conscientious objector, somebody who doesn't believe in violence. They're a vegetarian, and they practice Sabbath on Saturdays. So they pray and practice their day as a Saturday. Very committed Bible individual, will not fight, will not be violent, and then a vegetarian on top of that. So during World War II, a lot of people volunteered to be in the Army, in the services, because, that's what we did. We want to protect the country, so on and so forth. So this gentleman, Desmond Doss, even though he was a Seventh-day Adventist, volunteered and joined the military on his own volition. He actually was working at a shipping yard building Navy equipment, and he could have been excused, but he didn't want to. He wanted to serve. Now, here's the beautiful thing about him. When he went to boot camp, he was harassed, not only by his platoon, but the commanders, because he wouldn't pick up a rifle. He did everything else, but he would not touch a rifle. And they're like, look, just learn how to use it. You don't have to. He's like, no, I'm not even going to touch a a rifle. He was so dead against it, he was willing to be court-martialed to stick true to his values. But because he embraced his truth, he ended up convincing them, I want to be a medic. So his job, what he said was, I want to go into war and save lives, which is such a contradiction because war is all about killing. But he said, no, I'm not going there to kill. I'm going there to save. There's enough death happening. I'm saving lives. So, much to the chagrin of his CEO, they sent him to war. So he went off to the Battle of Okinawa. Now, at this juncture, when he went into this battle, he was a medic, still hadn't picked up a rifle, and they reached a place called, I don't remember the name of it right here, but it was an escarpment. It was a 400-foot embankment. So they had already been climbing and whatnot. So as his unit got there, they climbed up this huge rope ladder to get to the top, and they were met with violent enemy gunfire and shelling. So 100 men are up there, there's bullets flying, everything. So whoever didn't get killed was either injured or retreated back down the hill, except for Desmond. He stayed. So here's a gentleman who doesn't have a rifle, and his purpose is to save lives. So he's dodging bullets and aiding to people who need help. Now, the story gets better.
Some of us haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm coming off of, this is not even the movie though, this is like, I'm adding to other stuff, but yeah, so, sorry Jean, spoiler alert. Like your ears.
That's all in the coming attractions anyway, all that you're talking about. So.
Most of this is in the coming attractions like us. I didn't see the coming attractions, I just happened to read that it was based on a true story, and I like to see movies that are based on a true story. As a matter of fact, Mark knows me, I don't like violent movies, so when I suggested it, he looked at me and said, are you sure? That's what you want to watch? I'm like, well, yeah. And truly, the movie was horribly violent and too much graphics. But I ended up doing research instead, so most of my information now is off of research from this gentleman. So what he did was, he aided the people, but then he rescued them. So one by one, he went and got a soldier, aided him, fixed him up, and dragged him all the way to the edge, wrapped a rope around him, and then hoisted the guy down on a makeshift pulley. 75 times. So hours. This gentleman was up there all by himself. Nobody else was there. Everyone else ran back down the escarpments. 400 feet. So it's 400 feet. He's up there, and he's running around, gunfire everywhere, and he's getting people, and he gets someone. And so there was a great interview. He died in 2013, I think, but I saw the interview. It was like 2003, and he was a cute old man. And he said, I just kept saying, God, one more, just one more. So he'd go get a guy, heal him, bring him to the edge. Some guys he carried, some of them he had to drag because the gunfire that was going. Get him to the edge, hoist him down, and then he'd sit back and he'd go, one more. And he did. 75 people. It's amazing. It was truly just a beautiful story. That part was beautiful. The thing that I found the most amazing in my research is he was the very first conscious objector to get a Medal of Honor. He also received a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. This is actually the most beautiful part of this, and this was not in the movie, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. President Harry S. Truman gave him the Medal of Honor, and there's a citation that goes with it, so there's a story that tells you why. So at the very end of the story, here's what President Truman said to Desmond. I'm just going to repeat it because it really is quite beautiful. As soon as I fix my voice. Pause. He said, on May 21st, in a night attack on high ground near Shuri, Desmond remained in exposed territory while the rest of his company took cover, fearlessly risking the chance that he would be mistaken for an infiltrating Japanese and giving aid to the injured until he himself was seriously wounded in the legs by an explosion of a grenade. Rather than call another aid man over, he cared for his own injuries and waited 5 hours before the litter came to get him. As they were carrying him out, the trio was caught off guard by an enemy attack by a tank. And Sergeant Doss, seeing somebody who was more critically injured than him nearby, climbed off the litter and told them to take the other guy, as opposed to him, and off they went. Awaiting for the litter's return, he was again struck by a sniper. And when they came back to carry him, he was struck by a sniper now. So this is the third injury. He's struck by a sniper, suffering a compound fracture of his arm. So while he was waiting for them to come back to the litter, he got shot in the arm. He found somebody's rifle, and this is the only time he picked one up, and he attached it to his arm and made a makeshift splint for his arm, and waited for them to come and get him. They didn't come and get him, so then he crawled 300 yards to the aid station. Then he said, through the outstanding bravery and unflinching determination in the face of desperate, dangerous conditions, Private First Class Doss saved the lives of many soldiers. His name became a symbol throughout the 77th Infantry Division for outstanding gallantry far and above beyond the call of duty. So when I look at this gentleman, I'm trying to see what the fourth time, he had his leg blown off, then he got shot 3 times while he was trying to get rescued, which is funny. Trying to get rescued, and that's when he gets injured. So when I think about Private Doss and the amount of courage this man, so here you have all these gung-ho soldiers with rifles, and the most courageous one was the one who was the pacifist. The one who says, I'm not going to kill, I'm going to save lives. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. 75 people he saved, carried, dragged, assisted, and lowered down 400 feet with a rope. Can you just imagine the amount of rope burns this poor gentleman experienced as well? So when I look at him and I think about the chaos and the peace, if I can go back to the definitions or the acronym of the peace, I would definitely call him a pacifist. He was against fighting. It was all about saving people. So here's a gentleman who purposely put himself in a chaotic situation, war, the ultimate chaos there can be. He went in as a pacifist. I'm going to help save people instead of kill people. He also enriched the goal of him not being violent, but held a positive attitude of saving lives. He had compassion and empathy for his fellow soldiers, even when they were making fun of him and attacking him for not carrying a rifle. It got to a point where nobody wanted to go into battle unless they knew he was with him. Like he was considered their good luck charm. So they wouldn't proceed forward unless they knew that Doss was on their side, and then they would move up into their next location. I'm sorry, he sacrificed his own safety to be of service and give aid, which would be all come out to compassion as well. He embraced the values which enabled him to find strength and courage to uphold his convictions and to save lives in a war which was all about taking lives. That's what he did. So when I think about Private Doss and the research that I did, it's amazing how much this gentleman has been honored, and yet I've never heard of him. And I thought, wow, why didn't we hear about that when we were reading about World War II in history school? But there's been a lot that had been dedicated to this gentleman. He finally died in 2013, as I said, I think it is when he ended up dying. Never gave up his values. He stayed along in the Army, but his arm was so fractured, he ended up with a medical discharge because he couldn't work. He was still in a tremendous amount of pain. But when I think about him, what I think about is, if this young man was capable of such feats in such adverse conditions, then the simple task of me finding peace amongst the chaos that I'm calling chaos doesn't seem very daunting anymore. So it means I could watch the people on TV and not get upset. I could put myself in a situation where people are screaming and yelling and not take any offense, to find the peace, to be compassionate and a pacifist. I think that would be great, to work on enriching environments instead of judging the environments, to have a positive attitude, an attitude of I'm making a contribution rather than what am I going to take out of this, to be compassionate to all the members that I encounter of the human race, not just the ones I choose, and to embrace my values, to embrace the things that I find and hold dear in my life, and make sure that I'm not sold out on them just because I want favor, or I want advantage, or I want to have, the house on the hill or whatnot, but to stay true to what I find valuable. That I would say would be considered peaceful. So obviously, if I had a choice, I would want to choose peace over chaos, naturally. That's what I would want to do. So I did that kind of fast, trying to get out because I thought we were going to run out of time. So I'm actually a little early right now. What I'll do is, how about you guys talk and you guys talk. Talk about a situation that was chaotic in your life, and were you able to find peace? So same thing, find a situation that was chaotic, and if you were able to find peace. Go ahead.
Take it away. Oh, look at your turn right.
From my work.
That's chaos.
No, it was chaos being there. Oh. It was such a.
When you teach at school, every
What
day
they
is
did
chaos.
was first they reduced my hours.
Is it?
And then I said, no, I can't support myself on my salary.
Yes.
So I walked away. There was no.
I think it's normal
There was
right
no
now.
oral warning, written warning. The pre-home plan, whatever, they just one day. Decided they were being nice. And I was like, really? This is what they're doing, like tourist thing. Some new in Arizona.
Because I see a difference between.
So I like freaked out for a couple of days.
Yeah,
Now
you're
I'm
right. I
like
mean, I
No,
think,
you just,
finding peace in it.
I think when I
It just made it.
experience chaos, I really not a
Did they lay you off?
firefighter.
No, they reduced me to like part-time, but I decided I waited.
So you can't correct on the.
like you said, the work
The
ethic,
way they treated me, I didn't.
my work is like, all the time. In the meetings, like, people are just talking and nobody's listening, or a lot of times somebody's asking a question and he or she wants to know. So he's like asking 10 times and still they don't let them finish the question, and they just throw answers. And
Sometimes you can't just,
so it's
you can't change.
pretty much
it.
chaos every day. So, or hectic, or whatever.
So if like,
So,
so if you can't change it, you just have to.
because oh my God has helped me to stay calm and
My salon closed.
kind of
I was at 10 years, and we had 2 weeks to get out.
collect as much as I can and
I
tell
didn't know
everyone.
where to go, and I had company coming, I thought it was.
Communicate unless my boss, his manager is in there, he's the source of chaos. In that case, I just, I don't do it because he doesn't like
On the place, and it's a better
Or
place,
something.
and.
Visit it.
I know, a lot of people say, well, you know,
There's a
there's
thing,
better
surfers say.
way.
Is there a thing you
Sometimes
should,
it's
you
just
know, when they get in the way,
to think that, especially when you're trying to
so
slowing down.
we
It's
should
hard to
things.
But you know, I can say,
I just had to.
I have energy and heart and soul, and I just wasn't good, you know. So I walked away and I said, just do the best in this situation.
Well, turn. What about her?
You know, it's funny because, we're talking about like in New York, we always went to, New Year's Eve, and then we always go to Mardi Gras and New Orleans. I love it. Mosh pits, I love that.
You're really pushy.
Love it.
Because it's holiday.
Yes, I know.
So it's, so.
All right, I'm just going to interrupt you guys. I just thought of something else too to mention. Has anybody ever been in a car accident?
Oh, yeah.
Is that chaotic?
Yeah.
At times, especially when it first happens, it's a little chaotic. So we just recently had this experience. My daughter was in a car accident. And so we got a phone call. Mark gets the call that she's about a mile from our house. Her mom is all the way in the city, so it's going to take her a while to get there. So we run over to go get her. Now, I know me. I am one of the people that is the peaceful people in the situations. I get calm. I know how to speak to people so that you don't freak out. So I'm a very calming entity. I've been in accidents, I've been around accidents, I've been with EMTs, so I know I have a calming demeanor about me, so I'm fine. I'm not thinking panicky. It's like, okay, let's go, let's take care of this. My stepdaughter panics. Well, you know, she's 17, so it's, 16, she's 16, so she's hyperventilating. When I get there, she's hyperventilating. So when we arrive, Mark's pulling the car off in a safe place to make sure that we don't get into another accident. And I'm wanting to get out of the car. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And, I have to wait for him to come and open the door, because that's what I do. Because he's chivalrous, so, he always opens doors for me. So it's very hard for me to sit in the car and wait for someone to walk around the car and open the door for me when I could already be out. Well, in this instance,
for you.
in this instance, I didn't wait for him. I got out. And he asked me to please wait because he wanted to be there, and I knew he wanted to be the first one there, but I also know I'm very calming. And I also know that my stepdaughter, we have a good connection. So I knew if she saw me, she'd calm down. Where sometimes they have a little bit of a volatile. So sometimes, I said sometimes, but I just knew, I knew how I would be. So I get up to her, and she's hyperventilating. And I'm like, honey, calm down. It's okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, the car's trashed, blah, blah, blah. All right, and she lets her ramble and everything. And of course, Mark's talking to the cops, and he's trying to calm her down, and and the EMTs are there and stuff, and I'm like, ooh, fireman. That did go through my mind. I'm like, ooh, fireman. No, wait, your daughter. So I remember stepping up to her, and the EMT was taking her blood pressure, and I said, can I hold her hand now? And he's like, oh yeah, she's fine, she's fine. So when I came around Jenna, now Jenna's 6 foot, I walked out of the house without any shoes on. As a matter of fact, I had my Winnie the Pooh socks on. So I'm outside in my socks and my sweatshirt and sweatpants. And so she's 6 foot, I'm 5'2", so she towers over me. And I stand next to her and I just put my arm around her and I go, honey, you're okay. And she literally just collapsed in my arms. It's just like, can I sit down? Honey, yes, you should be sitting down. Why are you standing? So we sat down on the curb, and she just leaned on me. And I just know, you know what to say. Just calm. This is what you do. It's okay. Look, we're grateful. You have your fingers and toes. There's nothing broken. Nothing's bleeding. Everything's fine. Mom's so upset. No, your mom's not upset, honey. Your mom's worried about you. We're just glad that you're... And I know how to be. And within a matter of moments, she was calm. And then she started thinking rationally. Okay, I got to get my stuff out of the car. They're going to tow it. Well, you don't have to do that now. We can do that. Well, just tell me what you want to get. And we walked through the whole process, so on and so forth. Her mom comes. She takes off with her mom. Well, later on that evening, she sends me a text. And she says, thank you so much for coming and for calming me down. Like, that to me is worth more than any how many I loves you do that, because she recognizes that that's what I do. I calmed her down. And I knew it. I knew that's what I do, but to see her recognize it. And I thought, wouldn't that be great if the next time, God forbid, she's in another accident, that she doesn't freak out. She remembers to, okay, take the breath, to breathe. Don't freak out thinking about what could have happened. Just stay where you are right now. It's okay. It was funny because it wasn't funny, but miraculous how she ended up. She was driving, and a car was in the two-way lane this way, and it was stopped. And as she's driving, he pulled out in front of her without a signal or anything. So instead of avoiding, she went to avoid him and spun, and she hit a sign, and then spun into a fire hydrant, popped the fire hydrant 30 feet, the fire hydrant 35 feet backwards. The force of that threw her across 4 lanes of traffic, and she hit the end of the road facing the wrong way. Didn't hit another car. Amazing. Did not hit another car. And tons of witnesses were there to watch it and everything. But very rattling for someone who'd never been in an accident. Very rattling. He totaled her car. And, now her big thing is she's lost her freedom. She can't drive anymore. She's got to ask somebody for a ride all the time now. But back to the idea of being peaceful and calming. Knowing that I have that ability, I can walk into a very chaotic situation with the accident and not even be affected by the accident. I don't worry about the lights flashing or what could have happened. I just know this is what we need to do. We need to go be calm and calm her down. So when you have that peace strive in your mind, right there, nothing detracts you. So again, even though the firemen around didn't even, no, I didn't say that until after they left. I was like, oh, I should have made a comment about the firemen. I did to her when we were sitting there, the EMT said, well, is there anything else you want? And I looked at her, I said, honey, do you want their phone numbers? And the EMT kind of looked at me like, are you serious? I'm like, no, we're kidding. But that part, when you're striving on the piece, nothing can block you from it. So I wasn't affected by the accident at all. And then, poor Mark, this is his daughter, so he's now thinking, what could have happened? And then be peaceful with my husband. It's okay, sweetheart. I know, you're right, that could have happened, but it didn't. So thank God, we're very grateful that all of that didn't happen. So staying with the idea of peace is very helpful, and you can actually walk into a chaotic situation knowing that your purpose is peace. So I totally forgot about that, but I think that's good, and I don't need to boast or anything, but I know how to be peaceful in a chaotic situation like that. So I'm grateful to be able to talk about something that was so recent on that. All right, well, that takes care of that. The dogs want to go meet, so we're going to end. By the way, I wanted to just let everyone know we were live on Facebook tonight. We were able to do this live, so this video was on Facebook. I don't know if anybody was watching. And I know that I get some notifications when Deepak Chopra is live, and sometimes the video is still available. So I think it might still be available for some time. So you might want to check it out when you get home to see if we actually are live. So everybody on Facebook who watched this, thank you. I appreciate it. And as always, thank you for keeping the spirit of Omega alive. We'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Hasta la pasta.
We recorded when we were talking about our.
No, I don't think it picks you up. It's only focused on me. The only thing is, no, I'm kidding. I don't get hurt you.
You want to see if maybe the
No,
other
that, when you said that about the firemen, you want the phone number, that's East Coast humor.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was born and raised on the East Coast, and I do that kind of thing every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, West Coast humor would be asking if the phone number if they were cowboys.
What? Where are you
I
from?
don't know, it's the same humor out here.
I was born and raised in New York.
Okay.
New York City?
Come here, you want to say hi?
Long Island?
Long Island.
Long Island.